Hello and welcome to EduCurious. I'm so excited to have this guest with us today. This is MJ Kinard, and she is a K-12 principal. I met her recently, and she has a dazzling personality. She is brilliant, and I really enjoyed talking to her. So I wanted to get to know her a little bit more. So I invited her to be on the show. So MJ, welcome. It's so great to have you.
I'm really glad you asked me to do this. And just so everybody knows, the only reason it's so easy to have a dazzling personality is when you're talking with Amber, she like brings it out in you. So charismatic all over the place. So no, it's great to be on. I could talk for hours about education. So it's nice to be here.
Well, welcome. And I want to hear a little bit about your career pathway. Right now, you're the principal, but how did you get to where you are today?
So I have done pretty much everything there is to do when it comes to the classroom. I have been a classroom teacher, pre-K through high school, in some form or another. I started when I was 23 years old, and I'm going into my 20th year in education, so you can do the math. Um, and it's come from a love of the classroom, and a love of for students. And I spent the majority of my classroom experience was in fourth and fifth grade. So shout out to all the elementary teachers because I don't know, I just feel like you guys are like the backbone of the whole system. No shade to middle and high school. It is what it is. And once I was in the classroom and had that experience, had that time, I kind of was able to pick up some experience leading professional developments like within my own school, and that kind of gave me the motivation to go for a position as an instructional coach. And then once I feel like instructional coach gives you that like foot in the classroom, foot in admin type of experience. Like you're not quite admin yet, but you see a glimpse of like the bigger picture. And once I saw that, like I knew I wanted more of that. And so I went back and got my master's in ed leadership and did the whole Feely thing and, took that 6-hour exam. And then I was, my first job, I guess, officially in admin was a middle school dean. And so that's where I circle back to, no love, like total love for my secondary folks too, because I think when your first job in admin is discipline for middle school, it's like trial by fire. Yes, that face. that face. In fact, I think that was the first conversation you and I ever had was like middle school discipline. Here we go. And I did that. It was at a 6 through 12 campus. And so after my year as dean, I was fortunate to move up to an assistant principal position at that same school. Very much enjoyed it. Very much, when you think back to your first year in the classroom and you're like just trying to hold on for dear life, it is very much like that your first year in administration. And your first year to your third year, it's like you're like a whole other person. And so it just a lot of stress, few tears, but I never thought to myself, I regret doing this or this isn't for me. Like I totally loved it. And so after I spent my time as an AP, the position for an elementary principal became open here at my current school. It's a smaller private school in Columbia County, but we are a pre-K through 12th grade campus. And so I did a year as solely the elementary principal. And then this past year, the position kind of opened up more and they wanted kind of one head of school, like for K through 12. And so now I have all the grade levels. And it's been somewhat of an adjustment. I will say people think like if you have lower numbers and it's private school, that it's a cakewalk. But I always tell people like the biggest difference to me, one of the biggest differences between public and private is that when I was public, like I had a person for IT and I had a person for human resources and I had a person for professional development and I had a person for food service. Now I am all the persons. I'm all the things. Um, and I have a great support staff here, but that's one of the main differences. I've learned a lot about IT in the past year, grown a lot in that area. So, but that's been my education course as far as my professional career. Um, who I am, who I've been as a student, I'm from a very small town in North Florida. I'm from Madison County, which, if you know anything about Madison, you either know high school football or you've been stopped speeding as you drove through there. So those are about the only two things you know about Madison. And I grew up there, very rural, and education was it was your key out, right? Like that was your path. Um, and so, and especially, being a female, one of the only careers you ever saw that was financially worth it was education, which that's scary if you say that out loud, that was like the financially, sound career path. Um, but I graduated high school there. I went to North Florida Community College for 2 years. And then at that time, Florida A&M actually provided a pathway on the North Florida campus to receive your bachelor's in elementary ed. And so I was able to kind of take advantage of that and stay right there. It was cheap. Uh, didn't have to move to like a bigger area and pay those expenses. So I took advantage of that program, and then later on went to Stetson for my master's. And I also did my ed specialist with Stetson. And now I'm in the middle of a doctoral program at Florida State. So not only do I love education professionally, I guess I would be a lifelong student if bills were not an issue. Like if I didn't have to pay bills and I just had an immense amount of money, I would just go to school forever.
So to recap, you've got your master's and you have a master's specialist, and you're a year out from becoming a doctor.
That is correct. Yes.
And then you're done for now. For now.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be done for a minute.
Okay.
Student loans say that I'm done. I say that I'm done.
Gotcha.
I just love to learn. Like, as corny as that sounds, and I don't, I don't know how to say it where it doesn't sound so cliche. But I truly think like you should never stop. And I guess that doesn't always mean a degree, right? But there's something very invigorating about being surrounded by people. The doctoral program we're doing right now is a cohort type of situation. My master's and my ed specialist through Stetson was also a cohort type of situation. And it's like this beautiful thing where like these educators get together and you're all working full time. Like you're actually in it, like you're a practitioner. And you feed off of each other. And it's almost like, how you hear people say a teacher's best resource is the teacher down the hallway. Well, like it's that, but like on steroids. And so it's hard to kind of not be a student. I don't know what I'm going to do with all my time in like a year or so. Who knows?
So what are you most excited about right now in education amidst studying for your doctorate and leading a school? What's coming your way?
So I guess I have to speak a little bit to this. My entire career was in public school. And I love public school. I love, I'm a product of public education. I have two children. My daughter is a product of public education, and my son since third grade. And yes, everybody knows since I said third grade, like what the scenario was. He's been private. And it's because the high stakes testing situation in public school just wasn't for him. He is amazing academically, but if you put a test in front of him, everything shuts down. So I say all that because I think that school choice gets kind of a bad rap when it comes to the role that it plays in the state of Florida. And I really, really am excited. I've tried to make a huge effort in my county. I'm in Columbia County, and I've tried to make a huge effort to establish a relationship with the public school district because we should be working together. We're serving the greater good. We're all in it for the children. Like we're all in it for the students. taxpayers should have a choice as to where their children go. I've been in public school situations that weren't always equipped to be the best environment for certain students. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to admit that a student might flourish or be able to achieve or grow in a private situation versus a public. I think we need to kind of step back from our own egos and just admit that it's for the best. It's for the best of a student. It's for them. Like, this is their life, this is their trajectory, and we just want them to be wherever it best suits them. I've had students here at private school that I've had conversations with, and they've moved to a public environment because they wanted things that public school offered, and I completely 100% support that. Because whether you're public school, private school, school choice, whatever your opinion is, it's supposed to be student centered. And so I'm very excited about those conversations, even though they can be kind of sticky and uncomfortable. I think it's something that we can't shy away from. And it's something that truly should be shared amongst all school environments, not just a us versus them type of situation. So I'm really excited to see where that goes.
What is your teaching philosophy, your educational philosophy? Because that sort of is indicative of that last answer.
Right. I had a professor when I was at Stetson, and she was like a true practitioner, right? Once you start kind of going into those higher ed experiences, you have professors who it's all been research based, and that's great. And then you have professors who have served as APs, who've served as principals. They've broken up fights. They've gotten cussed out by parents. Like, they've lived the life, right? And that was her. That was Dr. Gruber. And she stood in front of our class one day and she talked about how there's going to be really hard days. Like, there's going to be days where you just feel like, what am I doing? And you question it. And is it worth it? And this is going to sound really simple, but she said, if you can go home and you can look in yourself in the mirror and you can say that you made the decision based solely on the good of the student, the good for the student, then you've done your job. And as simple as that sounds, like, that is it. Like, from the classroom to admin to everything in between. If you just break it down to, I'm doing this for the good of the students, then that's all you need. You can't fail. Like, if that is truly what guides your decision making, what guides your priorities on campus, what you hold as most valuable, that's all. It truly comes down. And you have multiple stakeholders to keep in mind. You have parents and you have a board. We don't have school board, but obviously we have a board that directs us. You have the teachers on campus. You have a staff you're trying to take care of. And you're not always going to make decisions that everybody is happy with, but that's the way you calm your conscience, is the fact that you put the students first when you made that decision.
In your teaching career in education, or in your career in education, what have been some of your biggest challenges? You mentioned currently you wear all the hats, but over the years, does something stick out where it's just like, wow, I almost didn't make it, and then I did?
So I have to say, I never experienced that in the classroom. I think my first year in admin, like when I was a dean, because within my classroom, I never had discipline issues. Like, I don't think I ever, I mean, I could probably count on one hand the amount of referrals I ever wrote as a teacher. I never had to call my admin. I never had to reach out. And so, whenever anybody would ask, oh, how do you, oh, you build relationships and you do that. And that's such an easy perspective when you're in a classroom with your own 23 kids. Like, that's it. And then I had walked out of that door, and now I was on a campus with 800 kids, and teachers weren't all building relationships. And it was just that first year. It was extremely challenging because you were trying and it wasn't just that piece. I was new to admin. I was fairly new to the idea of discipline being my job. Like that was it. Like there was no great aha moments in the classroom. That stuff that keeps you driving, like as a teacher, you kind of lost it. And so I was at a new school district, and I was new, and then my AP it was his first year in admin, and then we were shifted up because the district got rid of the principal. So my AP was shifted up to principal, I was shifted up to AP, and we probably had 8 months of experience between the two of us. So, and we're trying to make miracles happen. Like we're trying to flip the culture on this campus. Like employees aren't happy. There's huge turnover. The community doesn't trust the school. Fortunately, my AP to principal, he was from the county, like was an alumni at that high school. So he kind of had some buy-in. I had to work my butt off to get buy-in. Like I was the outsider. Who does she think she is? All of the things. So there were plenty of days I would like sit on the floor in my office with the door closed in the afternoon after bus duty and just be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But I'll say this, my personality has always been, I can handle it. Like I don't need anybody. I've got it. I'm very independent. That experience was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me for leadership, because I realized you cannot do it by yourself. Like I literally could not do it by myself. And so I formed these relationships with the people around me, my guidance counselor, like just everybody that was kind of in that same, realm. And they were very hands-on. Like they were doing hallway duty with me. They were doing cafeteria, lunchroom. Lunchroom duty is where like you have big relationships form because you're trying to make sure that there isn't a riot. And so in that first year, like I truly learned that you had to depend on people. And the beauty of it was, and this is, I believe whatever you believe as far as like your beliefs. But I do believe that all the pieces came together because I had these phenomenal people around me, and like they wanted the same thing, and they were trying to move towards better culture. They wanted better for the kids and the families. Um, and so now that I look back on it, I I don't know how I survived it, but I do. And I wouldn't be the leader I am today if I hadn't had that experience. Like if I had walked into some rainbows and butterflies, elementary school, no shade, but like where everything was beautiful and like, you know what I mean? I would not be who I am now. And so while I was in it, and I almost seemed like I'm not going to make it, and there were times that I definitely sent my resume to other places. I never I I would literally then be offered the job outside, and I wouldn't take it because I was like, nope, this is where I need to be. Um, and I still formed great relationships with students because they needed it. Like they needed somebody that was like a champion for them. Um, and it's some of the best relationships I'll probably ever have in my career with students and faculty. I still talk to them. Like they still message me. We talk on social media all the time, and like those relationships don't die. And so it's just that's probably it. Like that first year. Because I literally was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I had to learn that you can't do this by yourself. Um, so it was good. Like I smile thinking back on it. I was not smiling at the time.
And I'm thinking it probably came from, we have a lot of similarities in our story leading up to this. Oh, it's that I can do it myself. I can't show weakness by asking for help.
Mm.
It's me. I'm not going to whine about it. I'm not going to talk about it. Just,
Yep.
and that's the small town mentality, like
Yes.
I got to go hunt and fish for my family and bring home
Yeah.
the bacon, and that's
Yeah.
that.
I got to be independent. Like I can't call on
Yeah.
anybody else. And then when people show up and you didn't have to ask them to be there, you know what I mean? Like I had, and I know I'm like kind of repeating myself, but when, you know, you're short of staff and, you know, you're doing bus duty for 650 kids by yourself, and you look over and you have teachers and you have your guidance counselors and you have, you know, people in the front office that have grabbed radios and they've come out to help you because, and you didn't have to ask, they just did it because they knew it was the right thing to do. Um, that's a beautiful moment because then that means that they've witnessed you put in the work, and so they're willing to also put in the work. It's kind of, it's that cheesy, you know, whatever corny movie moment where you're like, okay, I'm not by myself, like this is going to be okay. Yeah.
You look back and you have your troops behind you.
Yes. Yes, that's a big deal. Or when you go into a parent teacher conference and you know that it's probably going to be hostile, and so you go in to support your teachers, and then when you need them, they step up and they're there, and you didn't ask, because Lord knows you don't want to put one more thing on a classroom teacher, but they just do it because it's right, and they do it because they feel that you've created this atmosphere where you can all depend upon each other. Um, there, there's this line in a book I had to read. There was an assignment for my master's, and it was the title of the book is Drive by Daniel Pink, and so it talks about like the psychology of what inspires us, like why do we do what we do, and I know, like, know your why, but beyond that, like psychologically, why we do what we do, and in leadership, why we choose these roles, and why do people follow us. And there's a line where he talks about how when you go into leadership, you need to understand that the purpose and the point is to create something so big and so amazing that you could never possibly do it on your own. And like, I don't know, I know. I've said this line like a million times to anybody that would listen. And I always tear up because like, that's it. Like, that's as simple and as deep as it possibly is that you can't do this by yourself. And if you think about it, any amazing, great, wonderful thing in life that's really hard, you can't do it alone. Like, you have to have others. And so I think that was like the universe's way of being like, no, MJ, you're gonna learn that you can't do this by yourself. And it just kind of set me up for a lot of learning, a lot of experience in 1 year. Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So, yeah.
So tell me, within that, how would you describe your leadership style? What makes you unique?
So, especially in education, I think too many times administrators become so far removed from the classroom that they forget. And while there are parts of your job that require you to, like it requires you to not just think about 23 kids. You have to think about the whole picture and everybody on the campus because you're responsible for all of them now, adults, students, everyone. But there's a part of you that if you're going to be successful in this job, if you're going to be successful in education, you have to hold on to some remnants of what that teacher does when they go in their room and what it feels like and how they connect with their students. If you lose it, I think you've lost your teachers. So there's that, and I do believe that if I'm not anything, I'm pretty authentic. Like I don't, I'm very honest. I'm very supportive of my teachers in every aspect, not just when I stand in front of them at a faculty meeting, like when it comes to parents, when it comes to our board, as long as they can give me something to stand behind, I'm going to stand behind them. So I think being authentic, being real with them, being supportive, and never being afraid to. So many times when you step out of the classroom, you then become not willing to do the job that the people are doing that you lead. So I think keeping that in mind, I think showing them that you're not afraid, to be in the trenches, to do the work. You've never asked them to do something you're not willing to do. I think is a big deal. And, people talk about culture. And, everybody like, we do like a snack cart Wednesdays for the teachers, and like I'm doing lunches, I'm doing all the things. And those are beautiful things. And like, yes, they love to be fed, but there's nothing like stepping into a parent teacher conference with a difficult parent to be there with your teacher and to know that you're going to support them and then they're not by themselves. There's nothing like sitting across your desk at the end of the day, even when you've had a very taxing day, and letting them cry and listening and truly being compassionate. That's something I've had to work on. But truly like listening to where they are. That's what flips culture. Like setting the example and showing up for them. Because once you start doing it, they start doing it for each other, and they start doing it for their students. It's like this beautiful, like trickle down effect. So those are the things I try to be. And believe me, there are days when I'm not. Like there are days when I am tired and I am overwhelmed and I'm probably not at my very, very best. But those are the things that I won't ever negotiate about, because that's at the least, that's what the teachers deserve. And you realize that. So once you move from the classroom and those 23 babies were yours and you took care of them, you very much realize in this position, you don't actually have a direct effect on students anymore. Everything you do is an indirect effect, and it's all cycled and siphoned through your teaching staff. So what you used to pour into students, you've got to pour into your teachers. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities.
There are sort of knowing where your teachers or students are coming from and where they need to be, assessing the gaps. You mentioned one of the resources that inspired you. Do you have any favorite books, TED Talks, podcasts that inspire you currently?
I'm ashamed to say that the only books I've been able to open in the last year and a half have been textbooks from from our doctoral program. I will say, funny enough, I've kept a lot of books on my shelf from my master's degree, and a lot of those were less academic textbooks, research. A lot of them were less that and more, what is a leader? What are the elements of leadership? And so anytime you can pick that up and read that, I think it's, books that I've read multiple times, just being able to pick it up and go back to where I made notes. My gosh, how many years ago has it been? 5 years ago? Yeah. Anytime I can go back and look and kind of read the things that resonated with me back then, it really helps kind of reinforce why I went this path in the first place. And so, I think there's a plethora of information out there. As silly as it sounds, like I'll be the first one to admit that sitting down at the end of the day on my couch in my, bleached sweatpants and t-shirt and scrolling through like reels of like teachers and principals and just laughing and being able to say, oh my God, it's not just me. It is very therapeutic. Now, is that like this great academic thing that you strive to be? No, but it's very therapeutic to know it's not just you. Like, it's not just you. And, it kind of gives you like this community and this sense of it's going to be okay. Like, you're not the only one that makes parents mad. You're not the only one that has to deal with a superintendent that you don't agree with. You're not the only one. And so I have to say that's kind of like junk food for the soul. But it definitely helps.
I would like to hear more about how you embrace professional development with your staff.
So I'll never, ever do professional development for the for the sake of doing professional development. Um, I'll never expect my teachers to sit in a room for 5 hours and listen to someone that I haven't first vetted. Um, I have been on the other side of that, and I've had, and this is no offense to people that do professional developments. There's some really nice people out there. Um, but I've sat in ones that were just clear mandates from the county, and no one vetted these people, and it was no type of contribution to who I was in the classroom or to any of my colleagues. And so I have a very strong opinion about professional development. I was fortunate that because I've done some of it, like I've been able to do some for my teachers. But another group that we contract with right now is Methodology out of Jacksonville. And the reason she comes in and the reason that she does professional developments is because I have a long standing history with her, and I know how good it is. And I know it's research based. And I know that where my teachers are, they're going to benefit from it. And so I think the job of an admin when it comes to PD is to really investigate who you have coming in and if it's going to be valuable to your folks. Is it something you would sit through? And again, I do try to sit through I sit in with the professional developments, because while I might have a to-do list sitting on my desk, so do my teachers. And if you want to show that something is important to you and important to your school, you need to be in there as well. And so I think, that's kind of your biggest job when it comes to professional development on your campus is there a purpose? What's the purpose? Is it truly going to benefit your people? I also have started this thing just within the last 9 weeks on campus is we have phenomenal teachers on our staff. So I've made schedules, organized time. We don't have in the budget a specific instructional coach position, but I have a teacher in elementary and I have a teacher in middle who are extremely highly educated. They have their masters. They're phenomenal teachers. They have multiple state certifications. And I've been able to schedule within their days time for them to go out and observe and time for the teachers that they're observing to go into their classrooms, true coaching cycles. And I really want to dive more into that because I have such talent on my campus. And this isn't to say we can't always benefit from outside voices. You always can. But I'd really like to grow the people under my own roof. They have instant buy-in. They know exactly the students sitting in front of us every day. It's just, and the confidence that you see in your folks when you say, I think you can do this. I believe you can do this. We will benefit from your knowledge is just, it's off the charts. And so it's just kind of a win, like all the way around.
Really, the only access or exposure you had to a woman in a career was a teacher. So we're fostering these kids' academics. We want them to succeed, but how and why and where do you feel like we need to make sure these kids have career exposure to things that they might not have thought of, especially if you are in a rural area?
Right. So some of the biggest, not only was education like the only career path for a woman in the area where I grew up, the biggest influencers in my life, like that told me I could do more or told me that college was for me or told me these were all teachers. And again, mostly female. And so, it was kind of that double dose of this is the environment in which I feel the most successful. And so this is the environment I'm going to continue to be a part of. I think we forget the influence that we have on students every single day, for good or for bad. And I think whenever you understand the impact that a conversation has with a student, that opens up the doors beyond whatever you would think. We are a very small campus, but even though we're small, we have contracts with the local community colleges. We have contracts with the local tech school, so our kids can, do dual enrollment. Um, I've started hosting like high school nights where parents come, and we talk about scholarships and we help fill out FAFSA and we do all these things. I have kids that have already, they're seniors, they're graduating, they've enlisted for the military. Um, and I think your biggest responsibility is to provide an environment where yourself, your teachers, everyone in admin, the staff on your campus really project to these students the possibilities. Like, we're adults, we've all lived a life of some sort, you know what I mean? Like, we've gotten out of our hometowns, even if it hadn't been, too far away. We've gotten out, maybe we've come back. We've gotten degrees, we've went to college, we've passed tests, we've done the things, right? And I think, some people come from homes where college is an expectation and we're gonna save for your college and we're gonna do this. I didn't come from that background. It was an educator, it was a teacher in high school that said, you're more than capable, you have the grades, you can get the scholarships, this is what your path should be. But when you set an expectation of our students can do anything, our students are capable of anything. Because here's the thing, here's the beauty about community college. I went to community college. I mean, I could have, but I decided it just worked out more feasible financially. Nobody was paying my tuition. Almost anyone can go community college route. Anyone can go to college. Like, that's the beauty of the situation we're in right now. And I think being that sound piece, being that voice to the kids who come on your campus every day, whether you have 200 or 2,000 kids, that's your responsibility because they may not be hearing it at home. And let's be honest, let's be real. Like, I was from a loving home family, but I can say this about my own children. I tell my own children all day, every day that they're beautiful and talented and that they're amazing. But probably the voices that they hear in their head whenever they think about their confidence probably isn't my voice, because your mom has to love you. Your parents like have to tell you you're amazing. And most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, it's an educator. Like, it's a teacher that told you that you were worthy and you were capable and you could do more. And so while that's not like a grand, fix or idea or implementation, simple. A lot of things successful in education are, at its roots, they're simple things. I think that's just a responsibility of us as educators, is to remind kids what they're capable of.
Thank you so much for joining us today on EduCurious with our principal K-12 leader, MJ, who really does more than just lead a school. She's been there, she's been in the trenches alongside our teachers, and she's had a lot of personal experiences that have shaped who she is today. So thank you, MJ, for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed it.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Amber. And I appreciate you kind of just letting me tell my whole story, because I think as teachers, our story plays probably a big role as who we are as teachers, educators, leaders. It's really our backgrounds and where we come from that kind of mold us into what we bring to those positions.
Yep. We're a big community, and there's so much that I have learned from y'all and so much that we can learn from each other. So thanks, and tune in next time.